The Seattle Pride Parade is back at full strength.
So it's all about us coming back and getting to know each other again, celebrating again.
It's time to celebrate love and acceptance.
We're celebrating life, but we're also recognizing how far we've come.
And how far we still have to go.
Just because you don't understand someone doesn't mean that they are not created in the image of God and that they don't deserve to be here.
We're breaking down the fight for equality on a national level.
The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families. It's simply wrong.
The rising mental health issues coming with new legislation.
They are placed at significantly increased risk because of how they are mistreated and discriminated against in society.
And the inspiring stories of resilience.
I guess like to show is people who are in my situation or situations similar to me, it does get better.
That and more as KIRO 7 presents Your Voices Celebrates Pride. That is right, everybody. Pride is back in full force. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Monique Minglavin.
And I'm Aaron Wright. Seattle's Pride Parade is making a colorful in-person return to downtown. This year's theme is Family Reunion, which is fitting after the event went virtual for 2 years because of the pandemic. Also fitting, the honors of Grand Marshals for this year's parade going out to local LGBTQIA+ frontline workers like Metro driver Jonathan Futch.
I've been in parades for years, as a performer, as a dancer, singing in parades, just walking in parades, but I've never been given the distinguished title of Grand Marshal, so this is a first for me.
Pride is not only about celebrating, but also the continued fight for equality and acceptance. It's a fight that many people in the LGBTQIA+ community are still fighting.
And KIRO 7's Niku Kazori spent a day with a member of Seattle Men's Chorus who found a home at a local church, and he tells KIRO 7 how it helps him embrace his true self every day.
From a negative experience with religion, prompting the move hundreds of miles across the states, to finding a safe space to connect with a higher power, Mitchell Hunter has experienced it all.
I was a lesbian when I lived in Texas. And so coming here, I didn't even know that there was a possibility that one could transition from female to male until I met somebody in the Seattle Lesbian and Gay Chorus and figured out that was an option, and that rang true for me like right away.
Mitchell joined the Seattle Lesbian and Gay Chorus back in the 90s. Since then, he's been on a spiritual journey, hoping his story inspires others. When he was invited to sing at Seattle Unity Church, he knew he had found a new home, and he never looked back.
Part of our mission is to be inclusive and diverse, welcoming to all people, races and different ages and different religious backgrounds or no religious background.
Diane Robertson, the church's associate minister, describes the church as a welcoming spiritual community in the heart of Seattle. It's also a place for people who have had negative experiences with religion to come together and fellowship on a higher level, something that stood out for Mitchell, who connects in his own unique way.
To see that in every person, to see that each person has their own connection to that. And I think that universal feeling of connection, that belonging and to be loved and to love is kind of part of that understanding of how I want to walk in the world.
Mitchell says he connects through prayer and meditation, as well as sketching. And the Seattle Men's Chorus has given him the confidence and acceptance to express his true self. Sometimes I cry, you didn't say goodbye. Despite the many adversities members of the LGBTQIA community continue to face, Mitchell says it's important for people who want to show support for their community to become an ally and not just an accomplice. To start, he suggests reflecting and understanding one's privilege.
Maybe I don't think about the safety of whether or not I have to wait to go to the bathroom for all day. I don't want to hold that all day just so I can have either a gender neutral or a place I can feel safe and comfortable. And it's like, these are things that people don't think about all day long.
Being welcoming and coming together for the greater good is what Seattle Unity Church's mission is all about.
To have a healing space where he could explore spirituality and be welcomed for exactly who he is, and not needing to change who he is to adapt to the community or any kind of expectations here.
Reporting in Seattle, Niku Kazori, KIRO 7 News.
As some religious institutions exercise greater acceptance, a local private Christian university is facing backlash for what some students call a homophobic policy. Seattle Pacific University policy restricts teachers in same-sex relationships from working at the school. The university says it's a decision that was made in line with its Methodist affiliation. The policy caused a weeks-long protest with students sitting outside the president's office 24 hours a day. Staff and alumni joined in the protest as well, and several seniors at SPU had one last surprise for administrators at graduation. During that ceremony, several seniors hand-delivered pride flags to the school's president as they were handed their diplomas, a move that has since gone viral.
Taking a stand is what Pride Month is all about. It started as a tribute to those who took part in the Stonewall riots more than 50 years ago. On June 28, 1969, police raided a gay club in New York City called the Stonewall Inn. It led patrons, staff, and neighborhood residents to riot outside. Protests and clashes continued over 6 days. Protesters demanded the creation of places where the LGBTQ community could be open about their sexual orientation without having the fear of getting arrested.
And although we've come a long way since Stonewall, in recent weeks, pride flags have been the target of theft and vandalism in Western Washington. In downtown Seattle, pride flags were torn down and then lit on fire at Taqueria Cantina. Vandals also left the patio badly damaged. The restaurant is now trying to pay off the damages with the help of the community. And so far, the restaurant has raised over $5,000, which is more than half of its goal. And earlier this Pride Month, dozens of pride flags were stolen from downtown Burien. You can see the thieves were caught on this surveillance video. But this didn't stop the city from celebrating Pride. The community came together and raised thousands of dollars to help bring in new flags.
We're spotlighting a woman breaking barriers for the LGBTQIA+ community. Justice Mary Yu is the first openly gay Supreme Court justice here in Washington state.
KIRO 7's Deborah Horn tells us that this is one of many firsts over Justice Yu's long legal career.
Justice Mary Yu has sat on the Washington State Supreme Court since 2014. Her appointment, a trio of firsts.
Well, you're the first Asian and the first Latina and the first openly gay justice here in the state of Washington.
I am.
That's a lot of firsts.
And I'm very proud of it. I would say it took longer than it should have for us to be here, and yet at the same time, I have to say that I just am thrilled with the opportunity to serve the public. I do believe that my life experience makes a difference at the table.
But her lofty position has not shielded her from the indignity of still being seen as the other.
Have you had yourself occasions where your ethnicity was viewed negatively toward you?
Yes, there are times, because I like to wear a Mandarin collar, especially under my robe. I think it's a beautiful style that Lily Yang has designed for me. But every time I wear my black shirt, for some reason, people assume that I'm part of the wait staff. I have been handed dirty dishes. I've been handed dirty glasses in different receptions. It's just an assumption people make when they look at me.
And she too has seen the images of violence that the AAPI community continues to endure.
It's a painful part of our history, and yet at the same time, it's our community that has really embraced this country, served when called to serve, and in the Northwest, I think we've made a difference.
That difference extends to her open embrace of her LGBTQIA community, marching year after year in Seattle's Pride Parade. The last time was in the last parade before the pandemic.
Especially because it's 50 years after Stonewall. We're celebrating life, but we're also recognizing how far we've come.
Like all of her colleagues here at the Temple of Justice, Justice Mary Yu often makes weighty, important decisions that can affect all of our lives. But at least just this once, she's putting all of that aside, simply to throw a baseball.
I am practicing and getting ready for May 24th. And so, I have my shirt on. I want you to know I have been tossing a baseball because I'm told I have to throw the ball 60 feet.
All right, you ready? Yes. Oh, bad throw. Bad throw. This could be a bad omen.
All of it in preparation for this.
Join us in welcoming to the field to throw this evening's ceremonial first pitch, Supreme Court Justice Mary Yu.
Only the second state Supreme Court justice to take the mound at T-Mobile Park to throw out the first pitch to her beloved Seattle Mariners. And absolutely no one cried foul. Deborah Horn, KIRO 7 News.
That was a great pitch. And now from baseball to hockey and creating an inclusive space for all.
It's not too often that you think of, hockey as this queer space for LGBTQ folks.
A local organization is bringing pride to the ice, coming up what the founders say this kind of visibility means as they celebrate their second year.
But first, more and more bills across the country targeting the LGBTQIA+ community, especially transgender youth. A look at the number of states trying to put restrictions on things like bathroom access and sports. Next.
We're nearly halfway through 2022, and it's already been a record-setting year for state legislation targeting LGBTQIA+ people.
There have been more than 200 bills proposed so far, according to Freedom for All Americans. There's also been a surge in school policy bills, the most famous being Florida's Parental Rights and Education Bill, otherwise known as Don't Say Gay. It bans instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity through 3rd grade. It was signed into law back in March, sparking protests in Florida and nationwide.
According to Freedom for All America, most bills target transgender people and youth. 29 states are trying to pass bills that restrict transgender youth health care. 7 states are attempting to block bathroom access for transgender youth at school, and 48 bills have been proposed in 2022 to ban transgender youth from sports. Going in depth on this topic, right now 14 states have banned transgender youth from participating in sports consistent with their identity. And taking a look at the map on your screen, you can see another 8 states have attempted to pass similar proposals.
Well, here in Western Washington, a groundbreaking group is combining pride with ice hockey. They're ensuring everyone is welcome, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. The Seattle Pride Hockey Association is in its second year, and it can't keep up with demand. KIRO 7's Ranji Sinha found out just how big it's gotten and what it means to put pride on ice.
We've almost tripled the size of the tournament, and there's a lot of interested players. We have a wait list. We could add probably 30 more people.
Making a space for all players to show up to play hockey has been so exciting.
Seattle Kraken for Chris Krieger, the third for the Kraken.
The Seattle Kraken have helped hockey to grow in the Pacific Northwest, and there's pride in our local team, but there is also pride in the Seattle Pride Hockey Association, which counts the Kraken as one of its supporters. It's a group dedicated to getting the LGBTQ community playing hockey, and it launched last year.
I was very hesitant. Our team wanted to start with 12 teams, and I was a little shy on that and just was trying to be a little bit fiscally cautious.
Stephen Thompson says the association started last year with 8 teams and sold out spaces for those teams in 7 or 8 hours.
I had to eat my words and listen to Joey.
We met the founders, Stephen Thompson and Joey Gale, at the Kraken Community Iceplex, and they had to admit they probably could field 12 teams, maybe more, with the amount of interest that's been generated in the last year.
I always had a feeling we would find all the right people and folks from out of town would come and join us, but it was almost overwhelming in all the best ways.
Even as we were talking, next to the boards, we spotted a hockey player sporting pride tape on their hockey stick. Thompson and Gale say roughly 85% of the Seattle Pride Hockey Association identify as locals to Western Washington, but others are coming from all over to hit the ice.
Just to have all the momentum of Pride Month and the people out in the streets and celebrating, it obviously feels a bit more momentous to start with, but we're honestly just so thankful for a lot of the partners.
Sponsorships have become part of Pride celebrations in Seattle, and the Hockey Association says it's now getting interest from sponsors also. Gale and Thompson admit they were not going to take their group to this year's Pride Parade, but they hope next year to make their presence felt during the celebration.
It's not too often that you think of, hockey as this queer space for LGBTQ folks. We tend to think of it as this hyper-masculine sport, with checking and hitting.
One of the big differences this year for Seattle Pride Hockey Association is that 2 NHL players will be joining the tournament, and they'll be skating on these rinks alongside the members of the association.
We're working on a community grant program right now with King County Parks and Recreation to purchase equipment.
Now the group hopes to expand the tournament, bringing a little more of the rainbow onto the ice rink.
It's a sport for everyone, and we want to make sure that folks know that.
In Seattle, for Your Voices, Ranji Sinha, KIRO 7 News.
A different kind of effort is also underway in Seattle to create a place where everyone can exercise and truly feel safe. Certified trainer Sophia Walker created No Judgment Fitness when she moved to Seattle. It's a safe space for transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming, all LGBTQIA+ bodies and cis too. Walker says the needs of every body type and gender identity is at the forefront. Around 100 clients have found a community at No Judgment since it opened in April.
And there is a demand for these types of facilities here in Washington state. Take a look at this. According to the Movement Advancement Project, there are about 342,000 LGBTQIA+ people 13 and older in Washington state, including 226,000 workers, and about 28% of LGBTQIA+ adults are raising children. According to the Movement Advancement Project, Washington state grades highly when it comes to LGBTQIA+ policy. This means the laws in place help keep the community and its rights protected.
And while at the federal level, these civil rights laws protect people on the basis of race, color, and national origin, and in most cases, sex, disability, and religion, it does not explicitly provide anti-discrimination protections on sexual orientation or gender identity. That's where the Equality Act would come into play. The idea would be to amend existing civil rights laws, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964, to include sexual orientation and gender identity to be federally protected. The bill was introduced last February and passed with a bipartisan support in the U.S. House, but lost momentum in the Senate, something President Joe Biden pushed for.
When a same-sex couple can be married in the morning but denied a lease in the afternoon for being gay, something's still wrong. It's time for the United States Senate to pass the Equality Act and put the legislation on my desk.
Laws targeting LGBTQIA+ people are having an impact on the mental health of the community's youth. That's according to a survey from the Trevor Project, a suicide prevention organization. It found 85% of transgender, non-binary, and gender non-conforming youths reported declining mental health in the wake of state proposals targeting trans youth. And Trevor Project reports crisis contacts jumped 150% in Texas alone after dozens of bills were filed there. Amit Paley with the organization says the LGBTQIA+ population is among the most vulnerable to mental health issues.
They are placed at significantly increased risk because of how they are mistreated and discriminated against in society.
Meanwhile, a study in the Journal of Adolescent Health found transgender youth who were encouraged to use accurate pronouns in school experienced 71% fewer symptoms of severe depression. Encouraging acceptance in Greek life at the University of Washington.
Still to come, the steps a student-run organization is taking to help queer students in the Greek community and fight stigmas. On the University of Washington campus, an organization is working to bridge the gap between Greek life and the LGBTQIA+ community. Greek life is inherently heteronormative, but it's also evolving as college campuses become more inclusive.
Greek Pride is now connecting queer students with the UW Greek community. KIRO 7's Niku Kazori spent the day with the president of the student-run organization on how it all works.
At University of Washington, there's a long history of Greek life. Incoming freshmen are introduced to the long-standing traditions of joining a fraternity or sorority. But for some, finding their safe space within that community can be difficult. That's when the student-run organization Greek Pride steps in to give students a place to find comfort among fellow queer members. UW junior Sean Haney went from attending the first meeting as a freshman to becoming president of Greek Pride 2 years later, an achievement he's proud of. One of his most notable accomplishments, strengthening the relationship between interfraternity and panhellenic councils, providing Greek Pride resources.
They provide us with our funding, and we're also involved in their new member orientation and education projects that happen in the beginning of the year, which I think has been really successful, just introducing the idea of Greek Pride to every incoming new member, and ensuring that everybody who comes into the Greek system knows that this community exists.
Haney says sometimes there could be a negative connotation of gay people among fraternities and sororities, and vice versa, but Greek Pride is here to build a bridge between the two.
There is also a negative image of fraternity and sorority members within the gay community. So a lot of the time when I'm going out in Cap Hill or something, a queer space, I'll tell people that I'm in a fraternity and they'll laugh at me. So, there definitely is a stereotype that exists that these two communities have to be mutually exclusive, and Greek Pride is here to show that they don't.
Haney says Greek Pride is working to change the culture of the Greek system and its traditions to better accommodate queer and non-binary people. That starts with bringing awareness to old traditions like serenades.
The idea exists that you're introducing young men to young women and facilitating future relationships. There's no effort to introduce fraternity men with other fraternity men if they're gay, or the same thing with sorority women and sorority women. So that's the hole that Greek Pride's filling. We can facilitate those connections when we've got all these traditions around you that are not sort of created to help queer people.
Greek Pride coordinates with larger queer groups within UW and volunteer with city food banks and shelters. Haney also wants members and people who are thinking of joining to know they are in a safe space that caters to them and welcomes students from all walks of life. Reporting in Seattle, Niku Kazori, KIRO 7 News.
Well, this year, the Seattle Pride Parade returns to the streets of downtown, and it renews the message of love and acceptance.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you keep these principles in mind in your life.
KIRO 7 News is live, local, in-depth, 24/7. Log on to KIRO7.com and download the KIRO 7 News and Weather apps.